Most of the photographs being shown in the gallery now haven't actually been shown before. They have been given to Georg Polke, the son of Sigmar's, in 78 and 86 in sort of two heaps of photographs, and then Georg stowed them away in a box and lost sight of them actually. And only after decades, when he was looking after, I think it was his university certificate, after several removals, he came across this box only a few years ago. And it was a real finding, a real treasure he came across, and this was how it came to light again. I think experimentation and manipulation was two main things in the photographic practice of Polke's, and he sort of played the amateur. So he didn't want to come up to the expectations as to the skilled crafts of professional photography, but on purpose made mistakes. He did handle photography incorrectly. He didn't want to have this sleekness of high-end photography, but rather be direct and close to life. And so this convolute of photographs we're showing now is very much authentic in its way. It preserves the zeitgeist of the 70s, and he said he was actually applying any kind of failure he could while developing the photos, but he did apply it in a way that those failures would interpret the image at the same time. So he would augment the image. So it would be more than a rare or a pure document. This would have been boring for him, I think. So what he tried to do is to get away from clearness, to gain ambiguity, also a kind of painterly quality in his photographs by working on them in the dark room. There's a whole range of manipulations or failures on purpose. For example, I mean, from the very start, when taking the photographs, he was paying attention on not being too correct. So he would overexpose or underexpose, and he would solarize images or would superimpose 2 or 3 different images on one photo paper. So there's many ways of going on and getting this kind of metamorphosis going and changing constantly the image. Well, Polke used to study at the academy in Düsseldorf, and in '72 he made the step and left the art scene. Sort of went out to the countryside. They moved to village, to a farm, a big farm, which turned to be a very hospitable house where fellow artists would show up and stay for a while. And this place actually has been stylized a bit as being a kind of artist commune. I don't think it really was this kind of artist commune. It was a kind of rural off space, as it were. So a space where you could do different things maybe. So he did build up a dark room there, And he did experiment a lot, and of course he did work together with those fellow artists, and there was the idea of common works being produced there. Also, it was a place for a kind of playful practice of photography. So when the friends would sit around the table, the camera would be passed on like a ball, if you want. So, and everybody taking pictures of anybody else, and posing and joking. So it was quite a humorous thing, and a kind of self-exposition of anybody there posing. This kind of joking and posing, I don't think it was a planned performance, but it did have performative elements, of course. And in the exhibition, for example, we see Polke lighting a cigarette and sort of exposing himself, or he would play the three apes, you know, don't say anything, don't say no evil, don't see anything, don't hear everything. So this is kind of clownesque performance, if you want. So there is this kind of joy in exposing himself. Yes, we can see this very much in the exhibition. So well, we realized that this photographic material is very special for its casualness and taken its very direct character. We didn't want to put it in heavy frames, you know, and we were looking for another way of showing them, and actually have found a display Polke used himself for the first survey exhibition of his photographic oeuvre in Baden-Baden in '90. So there was a very long kind of frieze running all around the central hall there, and showing his friends and colleagues from the Hamburg Academy. This was one idea we had in mind, and on the other hand, it was the film strip, so the analog film, which is actually depicted in some of the photographs as well. So the idea was we would commission some new frames to be built. So it would just be framed on the top and on the bottom line, and on the sides it would be open to join with other frames, and it would be one strip. So like those photographs being taken from the stream of life. This is their character, I think. So if you're going through the exhibition, we have composed some bigger blocks of images. For example, one of them we just called Mixed. So none of the photos is titled, so they're all untitled, no date, which was quite a challenge in the beginning, you can imagine. And so there's this big block called Mix, and this is a kind of collection of findings, of, curiosities Polke came across. And I think with those groups of images, you can see how Polke was using photography 50 years ago, very much in the way we do use it today, taking our smartphones with us and taking pictures of anything we see which is remarkable, which we might want to look at or need or might to do something with later. And that's exactly what he did. So, for example, this big mix block, if you would put it in words of today, it would be Polke's Insta wall. Or he was using photography as a kind of a visual notebook. So composing pools of images which he might like to come back to later when doing other work. Another line of images we're showing is dealing with the subject of original and fake. And this was starting with a very crazy story, I think. Georg Polke still being a young boy, the family was offered a painting, so a copy from Leonardo, from a friend. He was leaving for somewhere else, going to a foreign country for 5 weeks, and he said, well, it's just a copy, but I don't want to leave it in my house. I don't feel at ease with it. Could you have it with you and look after it for those 5 weeks? And they put it on the wall because it was quite nice. And in the end, it turned out that it wasn't a copy. It was a real Leonardo. It was stolen in a French museum shortly before that time. and this guy who gave it to them was prosecuted by then. And this story, this event triggered a kind of reflection in Sigmar Polke. And he started at first with a sort of photographic research work, and that's what we are showing. This group, Original and Fälschung, original and fake. So he takes all sorts of pictures from reproduction, photography, ads in the magazines, thinking about what the original is, what fake or reproduction is. And then from this pool, he takes some of the motifs, and when he composes a big series of paintings with Achim Duchow, he uses them and integrates them in the paintings. And that's what you can see in the exhibition, because in the vitrines next by at Max Hetzler's, we are showing some of the books they did, and so you can follow the way from the photograph into the painting. So like one motif would actually have been used then from this pool of images he composes. Well, the last big group of works we're showing are, well, installation views of his Venice pavilion at the Biennale in '86. And well, it was a prize-winning work by then, and the very special thing about it was he was showing big paintings and wall paintings, and those paintings were constantly changing. They kept on changing with the weather, the temperature, and the humidity changing. So every time you came into this pavilion, the appearance would have been differently. So when he took some photos of his own pavilion, he, in addition to this process that was going on, he was, by the process of photography, adding some appearances and mysterious apparitions. And then he put those photographs on the photocopy machine and worked on them again. And he was actually using the photocopier as an artistic means. He was one of the first doing so. He did have, in the late 70s, where you wouldn't have a photocopy machine in every office, he did have one in his studio, and he extensively worked with it. And then changed the images, the photographic images again. So what we have on the walls are xerographies, photocopies, unique ones, but it's quite special. So it's 3 layers or 3 steps of morphing an image or a work, still developing it further. So there's another small group of photocopies actually showing a work of Goya. And Polke was admiring Goya's work, and he was visiting this painting called The Elders in a French museum in Lille many times because there was one section in the background of this painting where obviously Goya did some overpainting, and there were some traces of the figurative scene underneath still visible. And Polke did some reproduction photographs of the painting by Goya, and then put his photograph on the copier again and scaled it up. And then there's a wonderful thing happening, I think, because in the black and white image, the oversized section shows very sketchy, and it sort of opens up for speculations and for projections Polke puts on them. And he tries to think what might have been there, what Goya's scene originally might have looked like. And there's a whole series of so-called Spekulations- or Vermutungszeichnungen, he calls them, Vermutungszeichnungen, speculative drawings, where he fantasizes into this painting and tries to make suggestions what Goya might have done there. And he does it via the photocopy again. So for the exhibition, we decided to add some material from one bibliophile collector being settled near Cologne. And there's a kind of bonus track running through the exhibitions, a couple of vitrines showing material, showing the early catalogs Polke did. Part of them is very creative, collective, working with Achim Duchow, for example. There's very rare catalogs that hadn't been printed actually, but just photocopied. There's some 6 or 7 copies only left of them. So there's quite some treasures in there. Or there's, for example, there's the first catalog of his first exhibition at René Block Gallery in Berlin. So you have the Berlin connection with Beuys by then holding the opening speech, which is quite nice for the first exhibition you do. And also in this printed matter, you can find very much the humorous side of Polke. For example, he did have very much fun, obviously, in composing a kind of wonder bag. So it was sold, I don't know, it could have been sold in a kiosk next door or in a supermarket. So it's a plastic bag with 3D photographs in them, and it's called Lustige Fotos von Polke, so funny photos, funny 3D stuff by Polke. And there's a paper glasses added with the red and the blue eye to see the 3D photos. And of course, on the photos, it's him again, posing, making fun. So there's some interesting material going with it. And we have one big sort of archival board of books where there's almost everything that has been published on Polke, and some rare editions, unique prints, or catalogs with drawings by Polke on top, and so on. So there's lots of things to see. There's many photos. So he was really thirsty of making photos. I mean, if you think back in this time in the 70s, with the analog films, when going on holidays, you were thinking of taking 2 or 3 films of 36 with you. I mean, today you would make 360 photos digitally every day. And that's what he did as well. He did make hundreds of photos a day sometimes, maybe in the hour, which was extraordinary.